If it looks good on the outside, it must be working.
Oh, no, fiction. Absolutely fiction. That's one of the main principles in redefining success. If success doesn't feel like success, then it isn't.
Mm.
It's not about what it looks like. It's about what it is. It's about the truth.
You need to know what you want before you can go after it.
I know a lot of people who fall into this trap of thinking that they need to know exactly where they're going before they take action. And that, in my experience, is shooting yourself in the foot because it's like a chicken and an egg situation. And sometimes when this is what happens, people tend to just stagnate and wait for this special moment, the right moment. And the thing is that through action, you then start actually inviting clarity to come in. You stepping up and initiating some movement is going to bring answers. Now you're actually taking action and then you're co-creating. You're inviting answers.
Coach me if you can. Coach me if you can. Coach me if you can. Coach me if you can.
Ruta, welcome to the Coach Me If You Can show. Welcome to this very exclusive corner of chaos. So, redefining success. Can you maybe tell us where your journey started? When's the first time you realized that redefining success was needed in your own life?
It probably started with my mom's passing when I was 23. She was 47. So it started with something not so nice and not so exciting. But when that happened, it was a great shock to my system to suddenly realize, oh my God, life is fragile. It can end at any time. And here I am, 23 years old. And yes, I have a bachelor's degree and I'm doing all these things. But really, I wasn't happy and I felt like I wasn't on the right path. So that was like the very first seed that was planted in my mind, realizing that, you know what? I need to actually honor life itself. Now, that doesn't mean that suddenly everything started changing. Not at all. It took me a while to actually get a few of these kind of rock bottom situations and tough situations in life to finally realize when I was 28 that not only that I was in the wrong relationship, long-term relationship, but also I was on the wrong path in my career when I felt like what I was doing as a project manager didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So my own personal feeling was that my job doesn't matter and therefore I don't matter because I don't contribute to a better world in any shape or form. And so then in February 2018, so more than 7 years ago now, I suddenly came across this opportunity to work with a coach psychologist. And it was my very first person who actually coached me. And I remember like it was yesterday when I had the very first conversation with her and I told her, listen, I'm not happy. Somehow something is very wrong in my life, but it's for sure not my relationship. Like we don't even have to talk about it. And 3 months later, I broke up with my then 5-year long-term relationship guy, right? So that's how my coaching journey started. And ever since that time, I have worked with many different coaches and mentors and been in programs and studied a lot and, YouTube and books and stuff like that. And it's been a wild journey. And I started redefining success in 2019. In 2019, I joined a coaching program to get certified. And at the time, my very limited mind thought that, you know what, this is a perfect way to segue into a different department within the company that I'm working in. And that was like, well, maybe I will become an in-house coach and, transition into HR department or something. And that was all I could imagine because in my head, I was like, no way I can build something on my own. But then very quickly, when I started working with practice clients, I realized that, oh my God, like this is my jam. Like I absolutely love it. It charges my energy. It's amazing. I'm in love. And 2 or 3 months later, I decided to quit without having a plan B, just basically burning the ships. And I gave myself 12 months to make it work financially. And it worked. And here I
Wow.
am. It's 2025 and I'm still alive and kicking.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the reflection. Tell the listeners and myself what you do in a day-to-day and why you do it.
First and foremost, and that's why Redefining Success was born, the most important thing for me personally is time with myself and to really connect with myself, with nature, with the present moment. So when I wake up, the first thing that I do is I just be, honestly. Like I have my cup of coffee, but right now I live with an ocean view, like literally in front of my eyes, there's ocean view. And so from the comfort of my bed, I see the ocean every single morning. So this is how I start my day. And throughout the rest of the day, I more or less go with the flow of where my energy leads me. This doesn't mean that I don't honor my calendar. My calendar is sacred. So if there are client calls, if there are any other things going on in my calendar, I honor that. But whatever I feel I'm called to do in between the calls, that's what I do. And sometimes it is very, very intense. Just like in the last couple of days, in fact, I was so busy. I was redoing everything, reviewing a lot of things, refining a lot of things. And I'm quite exhausted right now, but that's very unusual for me because normally, which is also something maybe for the listeners quite interesting, in human design, there's this framework, human design. And in human design, I'm a projector. And projectors tend to have these huge ebbs and flows of energy, which means that we need to actually honor that we are not the ones who are with this infinite amount of energy constantly creating and constantly being productive. But in fact, the way we function is that there are these ebbs and flows, and sometimes we are extremely productive, and sometimes we need to really rest a lot and take naps and whatever is needed for the body and soul to rejuvenate. So depending on the phase, either I'm very busy or I'm also just going with the flow and there is a lot of creativity. I create posts, I show up online, I go live on LinkedIn, I do all of these great things and obviously work with clients.
Aha. I like the way you've answered that in a very internal way. So you kind of see what you do based on the energy that you have. So it seems like internal focus and internal study is a big part of your life. It's called Fact and Fiction.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Cool. If it looks good on the outside, it must be working.
Oh, no, fiction. Absolutely fiction. That's one of the main principles in redefining success. So I was actually revamping everything about redefining success just in the last couple of weeks. And there are 5 principles that I have defined as the principles of what redefining success stands for. And one of them is that if success doesn't feel like success, then it isn't. And it kind of relates to what the statement states, that it's not about what it looks like. It's about what it is. It's about the truth.
Okay, success means achieving what you set out to do.
Fiction, yet again. In my
That's fine.
opinion. I would say when we set mind to some kind of goal, it's just a direction in which we're going. And it, in my experience, is a moving target. It's not something to actually get to. You actually eventually might get to that destination. But on the way, you actually might change your mind. Circumstances might change. Your inspiration might change. Something might change in your psyche that you're like, actually, I tried, I wanted it, but now I realize I don't want it at all. So No, it doesn't mean anything.
I love it. Everyone should define their own version of success.
Yes,
Aha.
100%. Exactly.
You can have it all, just not all at once.
I would say yes and no. I mean, what does it mean all at once? Like, I feel like, this is a very philosophical one. If I really think about it from a deeper perspective, you can actually have it all at once. If you see it as a frequency, if you see it as a feeling, you can actually have it now. You can have access to love, to truth, to peace, to success, to wealth, to all of that.
I'd agree with you. If the definition of success is kind of something internal, a state of being, a feeling, then you might not need anything external that you need to achieve or etc.
Yeah. And also in my experience, oftentimes when we aim to be successful on the surface, or let's say you want to be, I don't know, to make $1 million or something like this, that means you want to be wealthy, which basically means you want to have freedom of choice, which basically means you want to feel free. So you kind of dig deeper and you realize that, well, I have access to it already, or I can have access to it already. And I have come across a lot of seemingly rich people who have millions and millions in their bank accounts, but they don't feel rich.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I wonder the norm is people's focus of or definition of success something external, something where it depends on something external, or is it internally focused? I think probably with a lot of people it would be, yeah, I don't know. How do you think?
In my experience, it's definitely internal, because a lot of people are externalizing what they think success is supposed to look like, and then they achieve it. And then they're like, wait a second, like nothing changed. I actually don't feel any different. And why they don't feel any different is because fundamentally they haven't changed. They only acquired something, and there's this very momentary and temporary satisfaction, maybe for a day, maybe for a week, but it kind of fades away. And very quickly, people start chasing yet another thing and yet another thing and yet another thing.
Perfect example. I remember living in Germany and I bought the car that I've always wanted, kind of thing. And the moment I sat in it, and it kind of felt different. Like I had achieved it. It wasn't as special. The anticipation wasn't there anymore. And it was like, okay, so now what? You know?
Exactly.
But it was for me, I'm like, okay, now I got it. Yeah. What next?
Exactly. That's exactly the trap that most people fall into. And a lot of my clients who are wildly successful, they say, listen, I ticked all the boxes. I have it all on paper, but then I still don't feel it. I still feel, unsafe. I still feel unhappy, unfulfilled. I lack joy. There's just this emptiness or apathy or disconnection. So exactly. Basically, you just keep on chasing the carrot that's hanging in front of you.
I'm sure there's one with the rat's tail as well somewhere, but I don't have it, but I know there's one probably. If you're not constantly growing, you're falling behind.
I would agree with that. Yeah. In my experience, when I personally, when I don't grow, I feel like that stagnation makes me somehow go backwards a little bit. It's like energetically, if I don't maintain that state of being or that state of growth or evolution, somehow like energy starts dropping. The excitement starts dropping. Like there's a lot of excitement about learning something new, stretching your comfort zone, becoming a new version of yourself. I don't know, cultivating amazing relationships. There's always this there's aliveness. When you learn something, you're always growing something, like it's like growing a plant. You're like, how much water does it need? How much, nutrition does it need? How much sun does it need? Like, you're always really excited how that plant is going to grow in the best way possible. And that's the excitement that happens when we grow.
I identify with that. And also with me, I'm quite strength aware when I look at myself. So I've done lots of strength assessments, and one of the top 5 in this one, it's called Gallup Strength Finder. It's learner, right? And when I learn, I feel alive. I feel like I'm achieving something. I enjoy the process of learning. But exactly like you, it gives me a lot of energy. And if that stops, that's always when I start investigating, like something's wrong. The recipe doesn't make sense anymore.
Exactly.
Now, last one. You need to know what you want before you can go after it.
Not exactly. I know a lot of people who fall into this trap of thinking that they need to know exactly where they're going before they take action. And that, in my experience, is shooting yourself in the foot, because it's like a chicken and an egg situation. And sometimes when this is what happens, people tend to just stagnate and wait for this special moment. The right moment is called. It's the right moment when all the clarity suddenly drops out of the blue. And it doesn't happen. And the thing is that through action, you then start actually inviting clarity to come in. And action meaning, okay, so if I don't have the clarity where I'm going, then what action should I take in order to get that clarity? Maybe I need to sign up to some program. Maybe I need to read a book. Maybe I need to have a conversation with someone because I feel inspired to do so. So it's kind of like you stepping up and initiating some movement is going to bring answers to you, because instead of just passively sitting around and waiting, which is not co-creating, it's not alive. Now you're actually taking action, and then you're co-creating. You're inviting answers. You're like, I actually want to know. So I'm willing to do what it takes in order to get the answers. Does it resonate?
Yeah, for sure. Multiple people jumped into my mind that might be afraid of taking their next move, or they put, in my opinion, too much stock in making the right next move. They're unsatisfied, but the next move has to be right. Whereas I often compare it to food at a menu. You don't know what you like if you don't try different things from the menu. And if I reflect and think about my children growing up, I have a 3-year-old and a 8-month-old, all I want them to do is like try different things from the menu. Like, I don't really mind what it is, as long as they're amped about it and excited about it. But as long as they're out there testing things, that's okay with me.
Exactly. In my experience, it's actually better to take any action than no action at all. And there are a lot of people talking about very wildly successful people who all say that it's all about fail forward. The faster you fail, the faster you will succeed. So it's the same thing. If you apply the same principle in making decisions, if you don't know what to do, just do something.
Yeah.
And you will learn by failing, and you will get closer to knowing.
Yeah, failure is a step to success. Yeah, I love that. And because for a lot of people, I think the thought of failure, especially if you place a lot of stock into the next move, can be debilitating. But if you get your energy from action and you gain momentum, then also probably has to do with trust and faith. You have to be in a good state of mind. You have to kind of trust that things will kind of pan out. And interesting. You survived fact fiction. Well done.
Is it not a common thing to survive this?
What's up, lovely people? Quick one from me. Just wanted to let you know I've sent my poop through the mail 5 times. Not because I lost a bet with Robin Waite, but because of science. Now, in one of my favorite episodes, I sat down with the CEO of Inner Buddies, a young, up-and-coming Dutch company, a spin-off of Maastricht University, and the company that makes this whole poop in a box experience actually insightful and fun. So they analyze poop They do this to study the microbiome, to study your health. And I've done it 5 times throughout this journey, lasting over 3 years with them. I've lost 30 kilos. I've defeated chronic hand eczema, something the doctors told me I would have to put up for life. And in this episode with Crystal Creek, the CEO, we look at my results of one of my recent poop tests. And the gut microbiome results showed a suspicious absence of farting. I'm just telling you one of the funny insights. But anyway, my gut, silent library, right? Which has got me thinking, kind of want to see my wife's test too. But anyway, I digress. So in this episode, she unlocks her brain when it comes to nutrition and the small but powerful tweaks you and I can both make to our nutrition that have a massive upside when it comes to our overall gut microbiome and our overall health, right? So check out the boys and girls at www.innerbuddies.com. Get yourself one of these poop in a box test kits and use the code WELLERGUTS at checkout. Now, back to the show. Next part is the coaching sessions.
All right. Nice. We're, shifting gears now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Peter. So, what have you been working on recently that is maybe a challenge, maybe something that you have a question mark and you would like to get clarity on?
So many. Been working on myself in the context of my career at an organization. Been working on the podcast, been working on balancing time, energy. And if I think about my kind of state at the moment, it's very much of a running state. You're running from one thing to the next. There's no getting up, looking how my energy is and kind of going where my energy, zone of genius or flow takes me. That would be a very different Peter Charles. At the moment, it's a Peter Charles who's kind of running almost as if you're running, the train's already left the station and you're kind of running to get on the train kind of thing.
Okay. And what is, you feel, the bottleneck to actually move forward in life?
I'm very impatient and I'm very strategically minded. So I'm typically, when things matter to me, I'm 10 steps ahead. Every outcome's kind of been mapped and weighed and these kind of things. So what I mean to say with that, I think a lot. But yeah, I also have to think of patience. Like I'm very impatient. So a lot of the things I'm struggling with, I think also need time and need maybe prioritization of which are the most important things that I focus on that maybe influence all the other parts of my life. And recently there was an episode on this show where someone said, whose opinion is most important to you? And I said, that's easy. My wife, my daughter, my son. Okay, who else? Yeah. 50 meters of nothing. And then my best friend. And he's like, okay, who else? And what actually happened there is in the moment I realized like, shit, I need to be on that list too. And does that make me a bad father if I'm number one above my daughter? But when a plane crashes, you first put on the gas mask on yourself, not the gas mask, for Christ's sake, the oxygen mask. But I'm bringing that up because it's a kind of a fundamental thing. And usually I'm working on the next big thing or I'm solving issues, often for other people. And I'm kind of coming to a point in my life where I realize like, wow, like I'm having a lot of impact, but I can't forget the impact on myself. And to be better out there, I need to kind of be better inside first. So things like sleep, stress, nutrition, sport, like taking care of me first is a big one at the moment. If I'm just reflecting with you, yeah, kind of like a Peter first, not America first, but Peter first. But in with the right intention of to increase the impact on those who I love most, I am realizing that I need to work on my own building site, so to speak. And yeah, kind of, sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So stress, big topic, sleep. Yeah, Peter first. That's the kind of thing that pops up.
Okay, nice. Nothing to apologize for, by the way. So are you doing something about it when it comes to Peter first?
What Peter does best is think about it, evaluate options, things, and in terms of action, we just spoke about how important that is. Yes, in certain categories, 100%. I mentioned in the beginning to you, lost 30 kilos. That's due to nutrition and healthy eating. So there are aspects where I've focused on and success has come. But there are other ones that I really haven't kind of figured out yet, like mindfulness, I'd say, meditation. I know that's what my mind needs, especially someone who's very strategic minded. Thinking is the go-to for everything. You need to know how to turn that the light bulb off.
Mm-hmm.
And that also ties into sport. Sport just doesn't happen at the moment, and I feel so great after when it does happen. But those are kind of good examples, I think.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely something around stress and overthinking and being in your head a lot. And
Yep.
so what specifically are you stressed about? Because it seems like you're, like you said, you're strategic and you're thinking 10 steps ahead. So what's that stress all about? Why are you overthinking and thinking so far ahead?
It's a good question. Because I've learned that I can have quite considerable impact in the things I apply myself to, and so I very much see that end version of a project, of a thing, of an intervention, whatever it is. And so, yeah, one has high standards for things that one works on, for instance. And if one realizes things go another way, that could be stress, but especially into performance, like me not performing well, maybe even me being perceived to not be performing well. Those are kind of triggers.
Hmm. Where is that coming from? So there's an image that you want to portray.
That's an interesting one because I don't know if I'm portraying it. Yeah, in a way, I'm portraying an image, but also who I am, who I feel. And so a trigger could be being completely misunderstood or, if you ask where does that come from? Think back to school, you get a report card, you have some awesome grades in one section and some very bad ones in another. Like, which ones do we focus on? Well, it's the bad ones, and then if you apply that further, maybe one thinks in terms of, well, if I don't perform well, the focus is on performance.
Were you being punished in your childhood for bad grades?
Not punished, but almost maybe, no, not punished at all, but yeah, in some aspects, yes. But one could realize that performance could be, love could be conditional based on performance. You'd get attention in a busy household if performance is good, and if not, the opposite. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's basically exactly what happens in childhood or when we grow up, is that we get this conditional validation that you will be a good boy if you do X, Y, Z. And then that creates this pattern in the way you function, that everything you do and the way you treat yourself is also conditional. So that's why I was asking about the image that you're portraying, even towards yourself. It's like, well, I have to be a perfectionist. It has to be perfect. It has to be great. I have to think through every single detail. I have to know 10 steps ahead. Like, you're very carefully strategizing and planning in order to come to that perfect end result in order to get a good grade. So you, in a sense, became your own parent.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it like that. I was just wondering, like, good grade from who, who's giving me the good grade? And I think it's probably myself,
Exactly. So,
Recently, there was a nice podcast episode here where we spoke about challenging my definition of done, my definition of success when it comes to a project. Like, yeah, you can use the client's definition if you're helping a client. You can create your own, but you can also create one that works best for you and your team. The analogy was used a marathon. Like, if the goal is just to come across the finish line within a certain time, that's pretty brutal. But if it's to enjoy the marathon, and for me, I think I usually think in terms of where the impact is the biggest within a company, a project, a client, a person. And that's my kind of measure. But I often might forget myself in that equation, kind of.
that's exactly why we're talking about the validation and this piece that you just shared, that you tend to forget about yourself in that equation.
Yeah.
Was the missing piece. So now, whenever you are working towards any project, towards any goal or destination, you have to be a part of it. How you will feel on the way there, especially as we spoke prior to this coaching session, that the target is a moving target. And you define it. Speaking of redefining success, you define what success means. So it's up to you to give yourself a grade.
Yeah. I like this. I always thought redefining success in the grand total scheme of things of your life as an end kind of product success. But speaking to you now, it's more kind of also in the micro, if that makes sense, like in the day to day. And I've often thought about the perfect day and how the perfect day would be. I haven't thought in terms of how I want my life to look like when I leave, like looking back at your life. That's an interesting one. But if just reflecting about my thought of the perfect day, almost like the Lou Reed song, it's very much about the feeling. I know the kind of setting. I know where I'm sitting. It's in my home with my family. We're barbecuing with friends. And I feel really good on the inside. And I'm just thinking now, because that's kind of at odds with my day-to-day. So my perfect day is very much centered around the feeling, me in my own house with my family, with friends, drinks, lovely food, and having fun, but me feeling very good. And so with this perfect day image, I would have done something with sport. I would have done something nice like walking in nature. But it's funny, like the end product, the perfect day, I've kind of sketched, but I'm so far away of that in my day-to-day in terms of making that happen. Yeah, it's more, well, what you said in the beginning, the kind of you're waiting for that light bulb thing. This is kind of like a light bulb thing. Like one day I'll have that thing and like, oh, now it is there. But then you have one perfect day, right? And why not multiple perfect days?
Exactly. I love this realization. This is huge. So the question is, how can you pull that vision, that ideal day, perfect day, towards yourself so that it's here? It's not there. It's not tomorrow. It's not a month from now. It's not a year from now. It's not when you will accomplish X, Y, Z, but I can actually experience it today. So how can you do that? Like, what kind of action can you take in order to create circumstances for it to happen?
So off the top of my head, I would probably start with sketching the details of the perfect day, the conditions, the tick the box things that in my mind equal a perfect day, or like a mathematical formula, kind of like the stuff before the equals is a perfect day, but however you want to do that. But you understand the elements of a perfect day. And then you see how, I'm sure if you look at these elements individually, you can have them today. And maybe knowing myself, it's not wanting, like that game, the 4 in a row. I think it's 4 in a row. You don't need 4 in a row, but maybe to start off with, like having one of those elements is already a reason to high five yourself.
Exactly. And I think it also beautifully weaves into this perfectionism
Mm.
that now you're realizing if I just come up with the ideal day, image of like what it actually looks like, when I look at the different pieces of the puzzle, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has, I just have to do some of it and it will
Mm.
already bring me closer to feeling great. Because
Especially if the feeling is for me, when I think about it's the feeling. It's the perfect day. It's the feeling that I have, kind of. That's what. It's funny that for me, the perfect day is centered around the feeling, but one's so out of touch of that in the day-to-day, in the rat race.
Absolutely. Every time when I work with my clients, I always tell them that you have two options. Imagine there are two jars. And one jar is your current reality and the other one is your new reality. So in your case is the perfect day and is your today.
Mm-hmm.
And we humans tend to chip in the jar of the old reality and keep on recreating the same thing over and over again. We just chip in the same jar over and over. We wake up in the morning, we do exactly the same thing. We're living a Groundhog Day. But
You do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got.
exactly.
But I prefer Groundhog Day.
Exactly. So now your responsibility and your freedom of choice, really, now that we are talking about it, you actually have a choice. Do I want to chip in the jar of the old reality? Or do I want to chip in the jar of the new reality? And that's why I really love this metaphor of jars, because it doesn't have to be full jar. You just have to chip with one coin.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, is there a third jar, in my case, the future jar? Because I'm often in the future thinking, right? So there's the past, kind of the past Peter, versus the kind of current one and the future one. But interesting.
What do you think? Would you create a third jar?
I think I have already created a third jar, and that's the one I chip in the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like not living in the future, but so passionate about what the future can bring and the opportunities and these things. So, but yeah, it's an interesting realization that the kind of with the three jars, I like that.
Where would you chip the most? So now that let's say you have 100% of coins,
Yeah.
percentage wise, where would you chip?
Yeah, I divide most across the new reality, so me, today, and the future, but mainly me. The old me would probably place a lot in the future, creating something great if it's my life, etc. But I suppose you need that, so you need a couple of chips in there, just as enough so that you can kind of map it out, and then thinking of what we mentioned in the beginning, action. To get you there is the current jar, the new reality. Yeah.
That's exactly why the coins represent action. So the coins, it's like, okay, you thinking about the future is in a sense also action, in a sense, because like you said, it might ignite your passion and it's exciting and it's,
Oh, for me, it does for sure. Yeah.
it's it pushes you, it makes you feel like driven to actually move things forward and move the needle. So it's great. But there has to be some balance, because if you spend too much time in fantasy and in your future, then you're not enough in the now to actually do the thing.
Do things, and you miss out on the stuff.
Exactly. Like you said, you want to have a barbecue with friends and have a good time and feel great. And it's in the now.
Yeah, it's achievable, right?
Yeah. All right. So how are you feeling now, having this kind of reframe of stress? You said in the beginning it was stress and time and impatience and all these things.
No, I love that. I'm a very kind of visual thinker, so I love this image of the jars, and it kind of supports what I was kind of already feeling, that I need to pay coins into the slot machine of today, or into the jars. But yeah, it makes complete sense if I'm paying into the old one, the past me, or the outdated kind of reality, let's say, or philosophy. Yeah, and I think most of the time it was between that one or the future one, but there's no kind of current one, right?
And the current one, the main thing also from this conversation, or one of the main things, is to prioritize yourself and to include yourself into the equation. That it's not just about future and current life without you. It's like, no, I'm an active participant in my cars.
No, I'd agree fully. And it's funny because you see these kind of patterns now, me reflecting. That's why I'm mentioning other episodes, because, you might get part of the solution, let's say, but that's nothing. You still have to kind of do it and break it down into what it means for you and how you're going to take action.
So let me ask you, what is at least one action that you are going to take from today on to chip in the jar of your perfect day?
I think it would be tomorrow, and it would be going for a run. Come hell or high water, putting on my sneakers and going for a run, taking my dog with me,
Nice.
and going for a run, just because I love the way I feel afterwards. I hate running. I don't understand how people can actually like running. I think most people are probably jazzed up by the feeling of afterwards, and when you get really fit, then you maybe enjoy the running part. But if you're unfit, it's survival. So I'd like to survive for half an hour tomorrow with my dog, and I know I'm going to feel amazing afterwards. So I'll just revisit this conversation when I'm feeling kind of good from the run.
Brilliant. Awesome. So how do you feel now?
Yeah, good, really good, energized. I'm smiling. That's nice. I mean, it's I think it's powerful stuff in terms of looking at your perfect day, dissecting it like a frog in the biology lesson, and then figuring out, like, what of those aspects can I already do now
Absolutely.
and have now, and maybe you can have a perfect day even if you have one of those 5 elements. Does it have to be the 5? Does it have to be all at the same time, or can it just be one and it's a perfect day?
Exactly. And I think another thing to pinpoint and highlight in this conversation was that oftentimes the patterns that we as adults have come from our childhood. And so if we were seeking validation from our parents or caregivers or grandparents or teachers or somebody like maybe older siblings, for example, then we tend to have these patterns as adults. And then we're expecting similar type of validation from a boss, from a manager, from a peer, from a client even. So like that is very important also to understand that, like, maybe I'm being a perfectionist because I expect that other people will give me positive feedback, and if I don't receive positive feedback, then I will feel bad about myself, and therefore in a sense I'm a people pleaser. That's how a people pleaser usually is born in childhood, to be like, I need to be a good girl or boy. So it's something also to keep in mind, that these kind of patterns get established early on.
Yeah. And the kind of conditioning. But yeah, also interesting, the kind of framing of it might be your own validation that you kind of, there's external validation, but your own validation, if you're so kind of focused on that. That I think reflecting, I mentioned the Strength Finder with strategic thinking being a top 5 of mine. Futurism is also a top 5. That's the future jar, right? But I think also why I'm so interested in these tests, and people who know me will say Peter Charles doesn't stop talking about them, is because it's about the strengths. When you get a report card, no parent says, like, how can we make the ones where the individual scores 100 points even better? And that's, I think, why I'm so jazzed up about that kind of mentality, because it's liberating and motivating, definitely for me.
Yeah. I can resonate with this a lot because I came also from that kind of upbringing, and I was big time a perfectionist, and I was extremely hard on myself for most of my life. I was my own worst critic, honestly. I can give myself a badge for being my worst critic for the longest time. And in my experience and a lot of my clients, what the best remedy to that is self-love and really accepting the fact that it's about perfect imperfection. That life itself is perfect imperfection, and we are not ever going to manage to be perfect because it's impossible. It's a quantum impossibility. It doesn't exist on the face of the universe. Like it's not a thing. Like everything is imperfect. Like we as humans are imperfect, we are flawed, and that's what makes us beautiful. And when I reconnect with that truth of like, wow, I am given the permission to also just make mistakes and not always reach the goals that I set for myself and not aim for this extreme perfection, but rather aim for excellence, yes. Mastery, yes. But excellence and mastery is not the same as perfection.
You're not the first guest on the podcast to mention that perfectionism has kind of failure baked into its kind of identity, and that perfectionism is kind of times infinity. I think the individual said, it was Tom Godfrey, and he said, and thereby kind of failure is baked into it. And it's funny, when you were speaking, I was thinking about my own life. Where am I a perfectionist and where am I not? And I was just thinking about the not, because I thought that was more interesting. And when I cook, I'm completely not. Like, I'm not, quantifying stuff. I don't follow ingredients. I'm always juggling. That's why I love cooking. Cooking's my antidote. If there's a bad day, I go towards cooking. And Jamie Oliver, we all know him. He has a beautiful kind of saying. He sometimes says, like, wrong is right. With cooking, like, just something liberating. You're not worried about mistakes because it's kind of wrong is right.
Interesting. Why do you think when it comes to cooking, you're so easygoing?
Because I'm not in the future. I'm not thinking. I'm just kind of being, and I think
So it's
that's the
about
kind of
the actual joy of cooking, process of cooking.
Yeah.
Huh. So how can you use that?
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking as well. Yeah. By, again, changing the definition of success with these things, like the run, the marathon, those kind of things. Like, in the past, I had to run 5Ks. Otherwise, it didn't matter in my mind. Like, when I was especially trying to lose a lot of the bulk of my weight, which was through nutrition, but not running. I tried running as a tool, but it was just such a slog. It was so difficult. And I always said, like, 5Ks, come on, you should do that, being your own worst critic, And whereas now my framing of that has completely changed. Now I'm out with my dog, and my dog, we don't do fixed routes. We go with the flow. And that's kind of changed that definition of success. And I enjoy that more. And I think with cooking, it's the same. It's not about, of course, the food's ideally going to taste good, and it usually always does, and it should be healthy. But the route you take to get there is very kind of in a flow state. So the question is, how do we take that cooking experience and apply it to other things? I think with the running, that's happened, but it happens over time. Like, that changed over time, the running, from being something I'd clinch onto, it needs to be 5Ks, to something that I just kind of let happen. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. But I think there are loads of other things on the shelf of Peter's life that Peter wants to improve. And I think probably for each one, it requires either an own definition of success, or the whole shelf does.
Yeah. I think it also highlights something very interesting, that oftentimes it's about bringing joy into what you do and doing more of what brings you joy. So it's like the equation of these two. And when we do something that brings us joy, okay, that's great. So we just need to do more of that. And when we're doing something that's not really joyful, but we can bring more joy into it, that's one approach. And another approach is to do less of the things that are not bringing us joy, because there are also things that we don't like doing. So when I hear you speak about running, I know exactly what you're talking about. Years ago, I forced myself to basically start running. And in the beginning, I could barely run 5 minutes And then after maybe a month or two, I managed to stretch it to 45 minutes, not nonstop. So I managed to do it. But listen, I never actually started liking running. Never. And you know what? I don't run. Like that experience just gave me this realization that, you know what? Running is just not for me. I will rather go for hikes. I will rather, I don't know, go to a yoga class or a Pilates class or go to the gym or, just do something that's more in alignment with what I like and truly deeply enjoy. So I think what we are talking about here on even for the listeners also, it's where can you be really honest with yourself, not forcing yourself to run just because you think you should start liking it more or because you like the end result. Because in my eyes, and that's just my personal opinion because a lot of people wouldn't agree with this, but in my personal opinion, I would rather do something that I enjoy doing in the moment rather than only enjoying the end result. I will rather have both. I want to enjoy the journey and the destination rather than just the destination.
100%, for sure. I'd rather play paddle or squash or kind of a team thing that, does the fitness bit. But I'm still going to do running because with my dog, it's just too of a strategic activity. I can tick my dog's boxes and my own, and kind of it's right around the corner. It doesn't require planning or a big strategy or whatever. But no, I completely hear what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. Getting creative on these kind of things and looking, what can you do? I mean, when I used to play paddle with friends, you're having so much fun, you're not even realizing you're moving and you're doing stuff, right? And so there are those. So to get creative there is the message.
How was the coaching session?
Good. Absolutely. I mean, juggling with earth, blood, wind, and fire, it kind of sounds like really important stuff. And interesting also that a lot of aspects and elements of this discussion have come up before. And that's not to say that one doesn't, that coaching session wasn't as valuable, but maybe it just needs to percolate for a while, these things, and that you kind of need to chew on them a lot before you can digest.
So usually the way I complete a coaching session is by asking, what are your main takeaways?
The framing of success, you can do that for an activity, for yourself, for life, also for a day. We spoke about my perfect definition of a day, what that is, and where your kind of focus lies. If you're always focused on this perfect picture in the future, that's disconnected from today. And I love the analogy of the 3 jars. That's something that's going to stick with me for sure. So the 3 jars, if I understood that correctly, is you have the Peter that does the same thing that Peter's always done and maybe never changes, the kind of old reality, let's say. Then we have the new one, the current one, that you can switch into in action mode. And then you have the future one where Peter pays a lot of coins into always, but maybe some redesign is needed there. But I love that analogy, and it works for me for sure. And the whole focus on the perfect day, kind of, I think I need to challenge myself there. I know the perfect day, but how do I apply that to every day? And kind of how do I start designing every day as a perfect day kind of thing? And having patience when it comes to that, because I think patience is another interesting one. But yeah, I know myself. But reflecting about running and also thinking about cooking and some other activities we spoke about, these changes came over time. And so also giving yourself the kind of permission, it's not going to be perfect immediately, coming back to what you said, perfect imperfection, or what Jamie Oliver says, wrong is right. Yeah. So those are the big takeaways. Let me see. No, and the action bit. We spoke about action, and I just thought of a lot of individuals that came to mind. So busy planning the next step, and not kind of liberated in a way that action kind of gets them in motion and probably gets them to wherever they need to go quicker. And you're in the zone. You're taking action. You're out there. You're trying things from the menu.
Amazing. On the topic of patience, this is a huge one for a lot of people, including myself. For the longest time, I can tell you, even until last year, I would say, I was really struggling with my own impatience, wanting results yesterday. I want them yesterday. And there was a lot of entitlement. Like, but I've been doing so much. I've been working so hard. I've put so much effort into it. So why results are not here faster? I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Type of situation. And what it came down to, and what really switched for me late last year and early this year, is that I really anchored myself in unconditionally loving where I currently am. So unconditional acceptance of where you are as of today, meaning how do I phrase it? There's no other place I'd rather be. Where I currently am is exactly the right place, the right time, the right circumstances. There's a divine reason why you are where you are today, in order to learn something. So in my case, why was I impatient? In order to learn how to be patient. So for God knows how long, I was struggling with my impatience. And finally, I learned how to be patient because I accepted where I am. And in my experience, it's a spiritual learning, in a sense, that there's this infinite patience that you can tap into and realize that, you know what, if I see reality through the lens of spirituality, if I see reality through the lens of something more divine, more like mystical and intangible, then there is actually no reason for me to be impatient, because everything happens for a reason. And why am I resisting the present moment? Because impatience basically means you're resisting the now. You're rejecting the now in some way, as if it's not good enough and you should be somewhere else with other people, with other circumstances, with more money, with more clients, with more podcast guests or whatever. Like, there are all of these reasons why this is not good enough. But here's the interesting bit. In manifestation and in the law of attraction, when you don't accept the now, then you are not a match for more.
So what you resist persists, kind of thing.
Exactly. So basically, you are impatient, which means you're rejecting the now. You're not accepting it. You want more. You're desiring something. You're craving something, and vibrationally, energetically, you're not a match for more, because you're a match for less, for lack, for scarcity. You are vibrating in scarcity.
So you could apply patience to the 3 jars as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Interesting. I mean, this has been a pleasure. Do you have any big takeaways from the coaching session before we move on to the next? What was the biggest one for you?
I liked your addition to the 3rd jar. I usually use the 2 jars in the metaphor, but it's a nice one to actually have this realization that, wow, I really live in my fantasy world in the future a lot, and maybe I need to balance out a little bit and to actually, rearrange things a little bit.
Yeah. And for me, I know it's like learning, like exploring what the future can hold gives me energy, right? That's why I spend a lot of time there, but it needs to be a balance, or you need to have the current jar, the new reality.
Good week.
Cool. So we have 3 questions for you. We'll do these in 5 minutes. The billboard question. So just imagine all the listeners are driving on their way to work and they see the same billboard, and it's Ruta's billboard on Redefining Success. What's on the billboard?
Ooh. um, Success is not what it looks like. It's what it is. Or no, let me rephrase it. Success is not what it looks like. It's what it feels like.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. And we're back at the feeling again.
Yeah, because if it's Ruta's billboard, redefining success is all about that. That's what I stand for. Because essentially, why this is so important for me is because I want people to be happy.
Hmm.
I want people to live fulfilling lives. I don't want people to just sit on their millions, on their mansions, on their fancy cars and Rolexes. If they want all that stuff, no problem, but I want you to be happy. That to me is number one. So that's why that
That
statement on.
billboard. Yeah, back to the feeling. Okay. If someone's listening right now and knows their version of success is outdated, what's one small challenge you could leave them or experiment you could kind of motivate them to do that kind of leads them to a step closer to redefining success for them?
That's a great question. If money wasn't a question, what would you be doing?
So if money weren't a question, what would you be doing then? So without the kind of the anchor of money and we need to make money out of what we're doing, just imagine you have all the money in the world. What would you do then?
Exactly. Because a lot of people are limited by the concerns about money. And because of that, every single decision they make in life is dictated by money concerns or what their current money situation enables them to do. So money wasn't or weren't a thing, an issue, a problem, a
A
concern.
thing.
Exactly. If you were completely free, if money didn't even exist as a thing,
Yeah.
what would you be doing?
Last one. Finish the sentence. Redefining success starts when you...
Fall in love with yourself.
Ruta, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can say I feel coached. I enjoyed the conversation immensely. And where can people find out about you?
They can find me at redefiningsuccess.co.uk. That's my website, and they will find me and everything that I do on that website and all the links to my LinkedIn, to my Instagram. Just go ahead at redefiningsuccess.co.uk.
Thanks so much. A pleasure. Thank you for being on the show.
So much. It's been such a fun time. Thank you so much. And all the best to all the listeners. And hopefully they feel inspired and they redefine success.
If this podcast has made you laugh, think, or question your entire life plan while loading up the dishwasher or doing a diaper, do me a favor, please subscribe. Hit that follow button on Spotify. It's free and it helps me more than you know. And yes, it means the absolute world to me. Now, real talk. I don't just want listeners, I want a community. So I want feedback, ideas, or a coach you swear by. I want to hear from you. So either hit me up in the Spotify comments section or head to www.coachmeifyoucan.show and send me a message. I'll actually read them and I'll actually reply. And if you've never done a Wheel of Life assessment, drop me a note. I'll send you one for free. Once you get your results, you can choose the category and I will find you a coach for a free get to know you session. No catch, no weird funnel, no weird PDFs, just real conversations. I want to get people coached. So yeah, go to www.coachmeifyoucan.show, be nosy, say hi. Back to the show.